Welcome to an Easter podcast from the Mission Integration Team of Catholic Health Initiatives. My name is Kevin Murphy, Vice President for Theology and Ethics at Catholic Health Initiatives, wishing you a very joyful Easter. In this podcast, we thought we would ask our work colleagues for some of their stories that speak to transformation and resurrection. Stories that offer a picture of what love and hope can nurture. As usual, our colleagues had many stories, and in this podcast, we offer you a few of them. Many stories have arisen from the events of September 11th, 2001. Betsy Kammerdiner offers her story that begins with a phone call.
The day after September 11th, I was at home, finishing up a prayer service, when a call came through. A colleague asked me to join a group driving to Manhattan that afternoon. We were to work with employees affected by the tragedy. My initial response was, oh no, I can't possibly go. But reaching way down into my soul, I knew I had to. The next few hours were a scramble of preparation and fear. The hardest part about leaving for me was saying goodbye to my two young children. Because I was leaving before they got home, I went to their schools to let them know what was going on and to hug them extra tight. My daughter wanted to know if I would be safe. How could I answer that question? At that moment, no one knew if he or she was safe. I hope so, honey. I love you. The rest of the trip up to New York is mostly a blur. I remember the northbound interstates being largely untraveled. We were going up to a place where most folks who could were trying to leave. It was an eerie feeling. We arrived on Thursday evening in Lower Manhattan. Dust and fear and hopelessness were all around us. Friday morning, my fear and dismay increased. I was handed an address and a map and told to go counsel. I remember trying to figure out how to get to my assignment. I had been to New York only once before as a child, and I certainly had no idea where I was needed or how to get there. And if I'm honest, I wasn't all that sure I had anything to offer the people waiting for me once I did get there. But I went anyway. And I found that as I worked with others, trying to help them cope with chaos, my own sense of hope began to stir. By that Sunday, I had an overwhelming need to get to church. Maybe more than any other time in my life, in the midst of the pain and chaos of Manhattan after the attacks, I needed to be with other believers. I ended up in St. Patrick's Cathedral. The cathedral was packed, standing room only. Thousands of candles flickered all around that massive building, and thousands of worshipers shared sacred time together. Two moments stand out in my mind from that service. One was choking on the words of the Lord's Prayer, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. The other came at the time of the passing of the peace. As you know, it's usually a time of polite hellos and quiet handshakes, but that Sunday at St. Patrick's, it became so much more. Total strangers were suddenly offering each other all that we needed, more than anything else, hope and peace. For many of us, the world had come apart and an unknown enemy had declared a bloody war. We hugged and huddled together and offered each other the only thing we had left, the comfort of the peace of Christ. Throughout our lives, we all experience our own personal September 11th. A diagnosis of cancer, a car crash, the loss of a job, divorce, a death. We all come to hopeless places. I find hope when I act on whatever faith I have at the moment. I find hope when I turn to others and find Christ in our midst. And then I can begin to ask another type of question. Not where is God or what is God doing, but what can God do through me even now?
From New York to Chicago, Andy Santos tells us a very personal story of transformation.
I remember it like it was yesterday when my wife and I found out that our first pregnancy was going to end in a miscarriage. It was just a normal doctor's visit. We went for a checkup to see how the pregnancy was going and certainly how my wife's health was. And the nurse attendant was doing the ultrasound, and I noticed her staring at the screen with a more furrowed brow than what she normally did. She kept on moving it, kept on staring, and my heart started to sink because I feared the worst, but didn't let my mind get there. And then she put down the paddles and looked at us and said, "I can't hear a heartbeat." We told her to try again, and she obliged us, but she said, "We just don't hear a heartbeat." And my wife and I looked at each other, devastated and crushed. And for weeks and months afterwards, we just took turns crying and holding each other. It was so devastating. But somehow we found hope to try again. And I remember one day, my wife thought she might be pregnant, but wasn't sure. She got one of those home pregnancy tests, and she took it, and it was positive. But with everything that happened before, we didn't allow ourselves to get too excited. We need to find out for sure. And she went to a doctor one day while I was at work, and I didn't hear from her. And I went home and was afraid to even ask her initially. But then over dinner, she showed me the picture of a little dot. And she was pregnant. And she wanted to not tell me over the phone, and she wanted to see my face when she showed me that little ultrasound kind of picture. We still didn't want to get too excited because we were afraid of what happened before, but we couldn't help it. We were just so excited again that we were pregnant once more. And then 9 months later, we went to our local community hospital. And there was this huge debate all along as to whether or not I would actually even be able to make it into the delivery room. I oftentimes joked about longing for the days, the good old days of the 50s, where, dads would sit in the waiting room and just wait for the nurse to bring the baby out and say, "Congratulations, you're a dad." I'm a very squeamish kind of person. But I went into the delivery room and we said, "I'm just going to look at my wife's face while the baby is born so I don't see that and get squeamish or get sick." But I couldn't resist. As the doctor said the baby was coming, I had to look, I had to watch. And I saw the head first, and then, of course, the rest of the body. For a moment, my heart stopped because the baby wasn't crying right away. But then the baby cried, had all its fingers and toes, and I just was filled with such joy. I can't even begin to describe it.
Big or little moments, either can seem to be transformative. Carl Lusk offers such an insight with this story.
I want to tell you about a resurrection moment from a patient I knew. This widowed elderly lady shared her story with me. She still grieved her husband's death. She told me she had to deal with several age-related issues, and her quality of life had seemed to be slowly slipping away. She even told me that she had a condition that was not treatable. But then she said, things have really changed for her recently. A second opinion showed her that condition could be resolved after all. And she felt like a 100-pound weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She gave me a big smile and she said, "This is a gift from God and an answer to my prayers." When I told her I thought this was wonderful news, and she beamed another big smile and said, "Wait, there's more." She explained that she drew Social Security as her primary source of income, and that she had recently discovered that her late husband had actually set up a trust fund for her that would yield a monthly 4-figure sum. "I want to use that to help others," she said. "I'd like to contribute to an organization that helps single mothers with children." "Wow," I exclaimed. "We've got an organization like that here in our community." And I told her what that agency does, and then she told me, "Well, I only need to take a small amount from this for myself, and I can donate the rest." We talked on and we prayed. It was a prayer of thanksgiving and hope. She finished our visit as she said, "I hope this Easter will be the best I've seen in many years." Being able to help others, as well as myself, because of my husband's gift, is something I never thought could happen, and I am so thankful. I walked away from that visit realizing that in the beginning, it seemed this woman felt her life was slipping away, but now, after she shared her story, I believe I've witnessed a resurrection.
Thanks for joining us for these Easter stories. I'm Tom Koffensteiner, the Executive Vice President for Mission at Catholic Health Initiatives. On behalf of Catholic Health Initiatives, I just want to wish you a wonderful and blessed Easter.